Welcome to the Business Greater Than You podcast, where we dive deep into the stories of men and women who have successfully transcended the frazzled solopreneur life and built productive teams with better lifestyle and income.
I'm Nelson Bars, the founder and owner of Utah Independent Mortgage Corp.
And I'm Liz Sears, founder and co-owner of My Utah Agents.
We're excited for you to listen, interact, and grow with us. So please share your comments below and let's get started.
All right, we're super excited for today's episode. We have Eric Barlow with Norm's Plumbing, and we'd love to hear a little bit about your company, how you got into it, how you started it, all of that.
Eric is a good friend of mine. I've always admired Eric's company. Eric runs what I would consider a really good team-based plumbing company, right? It's not just one dude fixing toilets.
Right.
We know a lot of plumbers like that too. But I've been fascinated as I've learned over the years how your company runs. And why don't we start? Tell us a little bit about when you joined the company, what it was like then, and maybe just walk us through
Sure.
how it's grown to where it is today.
Okay, so the company's called Norm's Plumbing.
Mm-hmm.
Norm is the founder. He's my father-in-law. And
Okay.
he's still alive today. He's retired. But I started with him shortly after I was married. I was actually in the brick industry, being a bricklayer.
Mm-hmm.
And he invited me to come here to be a plumber, and I, all my family said that's a great career, go for it. And so started with him, and probably it was maybe 92,
Mm-hmm.
somewhere in that range, 90, 92.
Okay.
When I started with Norm, it was just him and two other kids,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just one of the kids. I was 21 years old. Started in schooling, so
You just told everybody how old you are, just so you know.
That's
Yeah.
a lot of
I'm
math,
old.
though. See,
I'm old.
21
Yeah.
plus 2
Figure all that
Gotta
out.
figure that out.
Yeah.
Take some time.
But anyway, yeah, so in the plumbing industry, you go to school for 4 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's an apprentice program.
Mm-hmm.
And so you sign up with the state as an apprentice and go to school for 4 years and then become a journeyman. So probably was with him 10 years just as an employee,
Mm-hmm.
and then started into the administrative side of it. He started teaching me the bids and the
Okay.
different things that way. So I always wanted to learn more than just
Yeah.
houses. We was always just new homes back then.
Mm-hmm.
And started doing some small commercial projects, he was allowed to let me to do that,
Yeah, at that point in time, about how many people worked with you guys?
At that time we had grown to maybe 6 or 8 guys.
Okay.
6 or 8 guys. Once I got to be a journeyman, then I started training, apprentices as we'd hire apprentices, and we was probably 8 men at that time. When we started doing a little bit more commercial, diversifying a little bit, I think we were probably in the 10 to 12 range when everything dropped out in 08.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And
At that time, you already were owner of the company, weren't you? You had some ownership?
yeah, so it was right at about that time, about 2 years before that Norm decided that he was going to start to bring me in as part owner, and
Mm-hmm.
we started that transition
Okay.
in there. So it was the way that happened was over several year process. It was planned to be a 5-year buyout,
Mm.
and it was kind of a profit sharing buyout.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then, as things fell out, that became longer to complete the
During the
buyout.
recession. and
Yeah, because the whole
Hard
recession.
times, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, but during that time, that's when we learned a lot more about how to diversify your company.
Mm.
And that makes a huge difference. And so now on the back end of that's been, proven to be a lot more lucrative for us as far as that goes.
So it's interesting what first appeared to be like, the world crumbled under your company turned out to be the piece that now is making you the most money.
Right. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, because we was forced out of the housing industry because it just went away.
Yeah.
And luckily we had already done some small commercial, but even the small commercial people were forced into the larger commercial, or the large commercial was forced maybe into the, bigger industrial stuff,
Mhm.
So everybody kind of had to take different looks at what they wanted their company to look like, during that time.
Yeah.
But it was a struggle during those days. That's for sure.
Yeah.
No doubt.
I was
We
in
know we're
business
both
too.
in it.
Yeah, we all went through it in different ways. I remember talking to you about that, about just keeping your head above water. And, I was in the same boat. I had a company that I shut down and brought home all the debt with me. And,
Right.
But you guys made it through. You stayed in business and just kept your head above water. And
Yeah. I mean, there was no profit to be made during those times, but
Yeah.
if you worked everything just right, we was able to balance things and make it work. And we, we carried probably 12 to 15 employees during that time. We landed a couple of apartment complexes that were very helpful to us, that just enough cash flow and capital to keep us, going, keep everybody going.
Nice.
It's
That's
always
hard
scary
work.
being a business owner when you feel like you have the responsibility for those employees,
Yeah, it's not just your own family you're feeding, it's also theirs too.
Right,
So making sure you got the
exactly.
business coming in and such.
Yeah.
So what were some of the first roles that you took over in running the business? Because you started as a technician.
Sure.
And
The first few steps, the way and especially looking back now, of learning of that was the training part, where you take new guys and train them how to complete the jobs, right? The way that I was trained to do it, training someone to do what you do, right, was the very first steps. And it's not like you notice it at the time. It's not like they take you aside and say, you're now going to become a trainer, but they just give you an apprentice and you start training to do it right.
There you go.
So that he can help you get your job done, right?
Yep.
And do it right. And you don't have to go back and fix everything.
yeah.
And that's where you start. And then when I started moving in towards the office stuff, it was mostly bidding, learning to bid jobs. In the beginning, I would go out and do the on-site bids, because there's always remodels or there's job site walkthroughs and things like that you have to take care of. And that's where, I started doing more of that. And then running some of the jobs like the purchasing front end, I guess it's more like a project manager, being a project manager of that job, or a foreman, and Norm's Plumbing, it's kind of the same role either way. It's a little different now. So project managers might have a different role. The girls in the office are more the project managers, and then the foreman are the guys that's out running the job physically on, going to the job meetings, safety meetings, all that kind of stuff.
So back when you were smaller, you were doing both roles, and then as you grew, you were able to split it.
Right. And so when you move out of residential into commercial, there's a few more steps you have to take, with OSHA and with the safety protocols that you have. There's a lot more layers, and so it's nice to have a project manager that can run the submittals and the paperwork end of it from the office side, and then have the foreman who's just out there physically running the man, making sure that you're on task, as far as timing goes or your schedule goes, things like that. Make sure the product's there, the materials are there, being installed properly, things like that.
Yep.
So fast forward with us now to kind of the current day, or tell us how does your company run now? How many guys do you have? How many trucks do you guys send out every morning out for jobs? Yeah,
so we have maybe I think 10 trucks, maybe 12 trucks, but we have 22 employees right now. Most all of them are running 2-man trucks. We on the service end of it, we sometimes will send single guys to do service, but now, so fast forwarded to now, during those rougher years, we learned to diversify. So we don't just do new construction, we don't just do remodels, we don't just do commercial, but we also do some service, which is like you wake up in the morning, your water heater's out, you got to find someone to call. That's the service. And so we have a couple of guys that we like to dedicate just to service, and which is nice because that's good cash flow, right?
Yeah.
If you can do service, because you get paid right on the
kinda
job
quicker
instead of being
than
on a
these
30 to
big-
90 day.
Yep.
I can imagine.
Exactly.
So then you have
So we
10
send out
10 to 12 trucks every morning.
Yeah,
going
so we
out.
send out about 10 trucks a day, every day, going every which way from Logan to Sandy or wherever, sometimes even up into Wyoming to
Wow.
You know, we do some jobs up in Kemmer and Evanston, things like that.
So how do you manage the logistics of it? Who decides who goes where every morning? Do you guys have like a team meeting every morning? Do you?
Not every morning. We have, so as far as big company meetings, but we just stay in communication daily. Company meetings we do quarterly.
Okay.
You know, it's usually a safety meeting, training, and kind of mix it all into one for about an hour.
That's
long.
a lot less than I expected.
Yeah.
Like I thought maybe you do like a daily rah thing in the morning or something like that.
No,
or?
they all come in the morning, but they all come in at different times because based on what their job is, where they're going, some guys like to come in at 5:30 in the morning and head down to Sandy to an apartment complex and get there early and get set up and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where others that have service calls that don't start till 8 or 8:30 because, you know, people just don't want to wake up at 7 to have a plumber come in. Those people come in a little bit later, you know.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then some people, you know, so we have a group of them that come in at different times based on where their jobs are. But we usually have a group of us that meet every day, and I'm there every morning to answer questions and talk to them, go over their work orders or their jobs, you know. And also when they come in at night, a lot of times we'll have a little bit of team meeting at that time. But more just as crews per job, not really as an entire company, you know.
So how do you kind of know every single job that's going on and how do you oversee quality, for example? How do you make sure that stuff's getting done the way you want it to be done?
Right.
And I imagine you're sending them out, new guys and experienced guys, and I'm just wondering how you just keep them from blowing up. There's so much going on.
Yeah, and it can be a challenge at times. But I try to go out, you know, like we come in, like I say, when they come in at night or in the morning, almost on a daily basis, every single guy I talk to.
Okay.
You know, if I don't see him that day, I usually call him that day and just see how's your job going. Is there anything you need? They're in constant communication with the girls in the office. So my wife, Angie, she's the office manager, and her sister, Debbie, is, you know, basically the same like an office manager, but they run the daily, like Debbie does. Both of them do the scheduling. They answer phone calls and that kind of thing. As far as scheduling, I mean like the service end, you know. So if you called in right now, unfortunately, you'd probably be 2 weeks out. You know, say you called in with a water heater out or something, a disposal broken, you know, she'd say, well, we're scheduling for this certain day, and she has a calendar in front of her with everybody's schedule on it, you know. So the men, when they come in at night, they can see, you know, say they're wrapping up with a house job or you know, a project, then they'll see right where their next project that they're headed to. And then we try to order their materials ahead of time. So that's what I do inside the office, is just try to keep the schedule in line, keep the men, you know, if they have questions, and then I'll go do job site visits every day, like, you know, at least.
Pop by whichever ones make sense.
Yeah, and sometimes guys need help or they want to go over something, have a question on something. But a lot of our guys are just, you know, they've been there for a lot of years, you know, 8-10 years, and they can run the whole thing without me ever even seeing the job, you know, and 100%. And so sometimes I just get in the way.
That's a luxury, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about how you keep them that long. Like, what is your mentality for hiring new guys and making them last? And I mean,
keeping the ones you've got
keeping
happy
those ones that are so valuable.
Well, I mean, a big part of it is, you know, I try to look at the way when I was a tech, right, or on the payroll, out, you know, in the field every day. You know, the things that I liked being treated like, you know, like the respect of giving them their opinions, you know, and when it comes to plumbing something, I mean, we have state codes and certain ways that it has to be done for the inspectors. And other than that, they can put it together however they want to put it together. You know, I don't want to micromanage them. I don't want to. Another thing is I've learned, and this is something I've learned through trial and error, which is to, you know, try to keep level-headed, control the things I can control, and don't lose it over things that I can't control. Right.
Which is pretty impressive in the construction business, because that's one thing that I've noticed a lot, is there are some hot-headed people in the industry, and so just being able to, like you said, just stay level-headed makes a big difference with the respect.
Yeah. And so, giving them the freedom
Mm-hmm.
to know that they're in charge of their own success and allow that to happen is one of the biggest things, at least my philosophy of how to do it. Now, different places you go, there are different ways.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some guys that have tracking devices in every van that, check them. They know when the door opens and closes. They know when they come and go.
Yeah.
And that's just not something that I would feel good about if I was a worker. And so it's not something that I implement on my workers.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I tell them every time we have a meeting, it's one of my sayings is, I'll never ask you to do anything for Norman's Plumbing that I'm not expecting to pay you for.
Mm-hmm.
And is all I ask is that same honesty in return, which is, if you're not working for Norman's Plumbing, if you have something to do during the day, go take care of it, but be honest with me about your, that you're taking off or whatever. And so, and I got a great group of guys that, I think through example, the guys that have been there for a while and the new guys come, I hope that everybody stays honest and fair, and when they do, they get treated honest and fair back.
Yeah.
I try to we give them all the benefits. I mean, we're competitive that way as far as, if you don't these days, because it's such a tough market for keeping guys and getting guys.
I imagine in your field, it's almost like a dogfight.
Oh yeah,
to get good plumbers to stay, or
absolutely. Yeah.
Do you have guys getting recruited away sometimes?
All the time. Yeah, all the time. It's always a battle. Someone will walk into a job and offer them $2 more an hour than they're getting, or whatever,
Yeah.
And so
you've got full benefits for them, and it sounds like a lot of what you're saying is just respect.
Yeah.
Right? And trust and
full benefits,
maturity.
respect, trust. We're very, we do job tracking. So one of the questions I like to ask the guys when they come in and do one-on-ones is what do you like? What do you feel like you're successful at? Job tracking has made a huge difference for us that way. Meaning, if we send a guy to do a house rough, like if you're building a new home, and we send a guy out to do your home, we can see how he does on that home at the end, if we made a profit, or if we hit our margins or whatever.
So when you talk about job tracking, you're talking about an accounting method of tracking per job all of your revenue and expenses. And then you can see which of your employees are profitable and which are not.
Right. And the thing that helps us with that, and I don't like to bring them in and give them the negatives and say, but what we can see is what they're most successful at. Like, we got some guys that when you send them to do a grocery store or a commercial job, or they'll just nail it. I mean, it's just what they enjoy,
Yep.
But if you're not doing something that you enjoy every day, you're not going to be as productive. And so and that's what I tell them, look, we can bid anything out there that's on the market. We can bid anything from a hospital to somebody's house, or we can just do water heaters and toilet change outs, if you want to, So what do you like? What do you want to see yourself doing, and what are you best at, So if I got a guy that is good at putting in houses, doing house roughs, plumbing, drainage, and water lines, and he wants to go do water heaters and services to a person's house, but he just doesn't quite have success in that, then I might show him those books and say, look, you're a lot better here. This is where you do better,
How often do you do those one-on-ones with them?
Try to on a monthly basis.
Nice.
Doesn't always happen.
That's busy. If you got 22 guys, it's like one a day.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't take a long time to sit down. It's not like a full-on interview. But
what would you say, like 15, 30 minutes?
Yeah, maybe not even, maybe 5 to 10 minutes. But yeah, to where we can just talk about what they're doing. A good long, like a personal interview, might only come twice a year, which is like during the raise times. So we give them raises usually it's every April and every October. And so, but this year we did one early just because of the inflation and all that's going on. But and that's just like clockwork. So that's one good thing that people know when they come here, is that they don't have to come to ask me for raises. They just know that they're going to happen. Now, the size of their raise based on how well they do, and that's usually when they come in and talk.
Okay. That's good. So, I like that. Instead of sitting around just wondering, is this guy ever going to give me a raise?
Right.
I know, hey, I got to talk to Eric in October.
Sure.
And then I'm going to work towards that so that I can show well and hopefully earn a good raise.
Yeah.
Right? So why not just hire more service guys? And there's demand there. And it seems like you're choosing to be comfortable at your size right now. You even mentioned you had opportunity to grow huge with an investor and get bigger. So what plays into your decisions to grow? Obviously, you've grown over the years. You've added trucks and guys. Mm-hmm. How do you decide what's the comfortable level that you're happy at?
Yeah, that's hard. That's a hard decision to make.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of it is workload.
Mm-hmm.
Like for one thing, like we talked earlier, you feel like you're in charge of taking care of those families, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I want to make sure that I'm not. You know, that's another thing that's bothered me through the many years that I've been in this industry,
mm-hmm.
is seeing these companies that will land a huge job and then they'll just rake in a whole bunch of guys and perform the job that they're doing and then just lay a bunch of guys off, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's just, you know, you're not going to have anybody wanting to stay with you if you're that kind of a employer.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I want these guys to feel like they have stability for however long that they want to stay in the business or stay with us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And as much growth as they want. So, you know, so to me, that's where the growth, you know, a lot of times, and this is through our business, the very best guys, obviously, and not always, because I try my very best to have the very best guys understand that you don't have to be an owner of a company in order to be successful and have a good income, you know. But a lot of them, that's what they want to do. They want to go out and, you know, just like the reason why we're doing this podcast is so that we can give those guys the confidence in starting their own business if they want to, you know. And I've never, like I've had so many guys that we've trained and they've gone, I can't even tell you, a dozen, maybe 20 spin-offs of Norm's Plumbing out there that are other businesses that are guys that I've trained or had work for me for 10 years or more, and they decide they want to go do their own thing. And so I've never, you know, I never want to be the person who deters someone for chasing their dreams, you know. So that we'll find other guys, we'll find ways to go, and most of the guys that's left me, we're all still good friends, you know.
Yeah,
and
you know, I just barely heard a story about a guy who he would often have people that he trained up spin off and go somewhere else, and one of them was who was telling the story about the first guy and said that he did a kind of a welcoming party for him by putting 5 framed pictures of himself in the new guy's office.
Perfect. I like that.
So you should start getting framed pictures of yourself and go put in their office.
That's a good idea.
That's hilarious.
I like that.
I had someone ask me once, you know, what are you going to do if he decides to go start his own company? One of my employees, doing really well, and someone's like, well, aren't you worried about him leaving and starting his own company? And I had to think about it. I was like, well, that would kind of suck for me, but it'd be great for him.
Right.
And I think we would still be good friends.
Right.
But I have to constantly try not to sabotage him. I have this temptation, like, I don't want to show him too much. I don't want to tell him, you know, the secret sauce or whatever, because I don't want it to be too easy for him to go. And I think that he would sense it if I was doing that, right? He would sense that I'm holding back, that I'm not trusting him, and I'd probably lose him faster if I was treating him that way.
Yeah. And they'll, I mean, you'll have more success within your own company by giving them that freedom, you know, being honest and open with them, you know, and maybe giving them little extra perks here and there, you know, like sometimes with my company, some of my lead guys, if they do a project and they do really well, because you know, we track the jobs, and it comes back and I'm like, wow, you did an excellent job with this, and I'll show them so that they know how successful they're being, and then I'll give them, you know, a nice little bonus check or something with it to say, you know, thanks for doing that, you know. So
that's cool.
But yeah, eventually they may have a dream that they want to do their own thing, and when they do, you know, is all I can do is, you know,
And there are
help
certain,
them out and send them on their way.
Yeah, there are certain personalities that's kind of where they're going to end up anyways as soon
Right.
as they learn enough about it. And then there's the other personalities who absolutely love letting it be someone else's ultimate burden.
Yeah.
And they get to just grow their business inside of it. So in the way that you've grown it, it sounds like you kind of satisfy both types.
Right. And it's, when you're starting your own business, the one thing you don't understand is that when you're a worker and you're out there and you're getting great wages, right? I mean, most of the guys are in between $30 and $40 an hour, right? Which is good, decent living
money
for these
yeah.
guys. And then, sometimes they think, well, God, it could be so much easier. I wouldn't have to work as many hours to get that money. But the truth of it is, you put a lot more hours in than what is reflected,
Yes, it is.
Especially when they're out there right now and I'm over here with you guys, and I'm like, I got this podcast thing I got to do. I'm running to Ogden. I'll call you when I'm done. You're like, this guy's just driving around goofing off all the time. That's all he does, Well,
I was telling you earlier, we've had quite a few people we've invited to come on the podcast, and it's kind of a good sign if they have a strong team or not, if they can come.
Yeah.
Because, you've been super flexible. We've had to try this like 3 or 4 dates, and we keep canceling on you, and you're like, yeah, I could be there. And I'm just like, that's really cool that he's got the flexibility and he's got enough trust in his team, whatever, that he can work his schedule around whatever he wants to do, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's the dream.
Yeah, exactly.
But look how many people it takes for you to have that lifestyle. You've got 22 guys. You got your wife and your sister-in-law back in the office.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not possible if you just are a one-man show. If you're visualizing starting something and doing it by yourself, it's no better than just being an employee. Right? It's worse by far.
Yeah. So when you start off in business, it's like you want to have your own company. You want to be the guy that runs the company. But the reality of it is you're being steered by the company. The company's running you, and that's the way it is. And until you get to a point where you can release the reins or whatever, to let the other people that are your team members go run their own jobs and do their own things, and don't I don't have to call and say, how's this going or how's that going? Did you get this done? Did you get that done? You just got to know that they're out there doing what they need to do and getting it done.
Yeah.
Then I can come here comfortably and not have to, worry about what are all the guys doing. And especially, but that's why I say you got to go layer by layer when you're building a company. You can't just, because if I had the same mentality I did when it was 5 guys or 3 or 4 guys, and I was there with every guy and, looking at everything that they did, making sure it's perfect quality control and all that, then you wouldn't be able to do that with 20. And some of these guys that have 50 or 100 employees, they wouldn't be able to do it either.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So when you hire, I'd love to know what your philosophy is with hiring guys. Do you look for experience? Do you want no experience?
I would take just about any guy that wants to work.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, these days, I mean, in a perfect world, I would take, a guy and bring him in and interview him and make sure that he's, doing what he wants to do. But a lot of times, like I get kids from the ward, and they come
I've seen
work
you
with
like
me
in the halls at church, just be like, "Hey, come work for me."
Yeah, somebody's dad will come up to me and say, "Hey, can so and so?" And he can start Monday if he wants to. We got plenty to do. We'll send him out there, and some of them love it and make it a career, and some of them decide that this isn't for them. But yeah, I'll take. I mean, any guy that calls me up and wants a job.
But is that just a function of the market right now, or is
it
it just how you've learned to do it that you like to do it that way? Because you're giving everybody a try.
Yeah.
Right? You're not trying to filter too much. You're not doing like resumes and background checks and like, no, I don't like his personality or whatever.
Right.
It's like, bring him in.
Yeah.
I have tried the opposite for a long time, and I would say my success rate is probably worse than yours. Right? And we have this really long interview process, and I think I got somebody I'm going to love. And then day one, I'm like, oh, what have I done? Right? Who have I hired? Right?
Yeah. And sometimes you get that way, especially when it's harder to hire guys that are experienced or that are already journeymen or come from a different company. That's always because they're set in their ways, or they want to compare you with somebody else. Like, that guy I was at had newer tools, and the guy he always had us in new trucks, or he always this or that. So it's hard that way, but I'm, as busy as things are, and as, like you were saying before, how do I not just grow and get more service guys? I mean, that would be great if I could. And that's what the conversation I had with the person who wanted to make us, take us to go big, was, where am I going to find the employees to make this happen? And it's just not easy to do. And that's where we're stuck with right now is, if you're lucky if you can find somebody that just wants to come to work every day. It's not always fun working outside. And I love it. I mean, I like to be outside. I like to see the sunset every night. I like to be out there in the morning in the cold air. And, it's hard for me to be, if I was like this all day inside of a place, I would get bored. But sometimes when it's wintertime and it's cold and snow's blowing sideways, it's not too fun.
And you're in Wyoming.
Yeah. Or when it's burning hot outside, it's not too fun.
Well, I have a coach that I follow, and he talks a lot about, make your mortgage shop like a restaurant. You decide how many seats you want to have in your restaurant, and when you're full, you're full. And if people have to wait, they have to wait outside to come in and have a seat. Yeah. I wish I would listen to his advice more, because for me, it's like, hey, we're in the middle of this huge boom. Rates are low. I'm just going to grow so I can handle all that demand. I'm going to put up my sails and catch the wind, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is great until the wind goes away, and now you got this empty restaurant. All your people are hearing crickets. And so I think there's a lot of wisdom to just deciding, no, I'm comfortable with this volume. And you talked about loyalty to your people, not wanting to have to do a layoff. Right. It's much better to be a little more demand than you're handling. Yeah. And just that's job security for everybody, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they get a little more overtime. They get, right now they get as much overtime as they want, which is great. Cool. But that's one thing that's difficult is not taking on, and that's, another thing that you would want to warn new starts is don't take on more than you can handle right now. Number one, it's going to make your life miserable. Yep. Because it's the same with you guys. If you have too many clients, it's, they're just going to be unhappy.
Right. And then do you have any horror stories with that? Do you have any experience where you just grew too fast, or you got too big, or took a job?
Yeah, during those times when it was rough years, there was one job we did for UDOT that it was way out of my range, that we just bid up. Well, back in those days, you have to understand, carrying 15 people, we were doing, maybe $2 million a year in gross revenue, right? But there was very little out there to find. So when you did bid jobs, you was really, really tight. And I would literally be stuck inside of an office all day long bidding jobs, maybe $1 million a month sometimes. Both Norm and I both bidding as much as we could gather. Every job that came across, And out of all those jobs, you might land less than 10%. Sometimes some months even less than 5%, right? Wow. So very, very little jobs would you land out of all the numbers that you put out. And so we landed one for this UDOT maintenance facility, and when we got done, job said and done, I had bid it wrong. We put way too much labor into it. It was way too far. It was clear up in Camas. And by the time it was all certified payroll because it was a state job, so you have to make sure you're paying the right proper wages, more money. By the time we was all done, it was $40,000 in the hole. So we're like, well, okay, this didn't work out in a tight time, So
dang.
Yeah. So I mean, there's those hard learning lessons that you learn if you grow too fast or take on something that's a little too big that you're not ready for, either manpower or purchasing power or whatever it may be.
But would you do that job today if you had? Easy. That's not too big for you now, right?
No, we do jobs like that, no problem. We're doing the Layton Fire Department. It's bigger than that job,
Yeah. So you probably just learned through hard experience, but you didn't give up.
Yeah. No.
I have a friend. This is an interesting contrast because I have a friend who's a plumber, and I was talking to him about the recession, the 08, 09 crash, and he had probably the same number of guys you had. You said he had like 12 guys at the time, right? He said he had about that many guys, and when the crash came, he held on to all of his guys as long as he could, and he regrets not letting them go sooner.
Yeah.
He says they would have found jobs, they would have been fine. But I had him sweeping the shop and just trying to keep him busy, and now, because he got burned so bad, because he just lost money trying to keep these guys employed.
Right.
He just operates as a solo guy now. He doesn't want a team. Sometimes he'll bring one person in to work with him, right? But what do you think is the difference, or what I see as the difference is how hard you had to work, or you did work, to find work.
Yeah.
Right. Instead of saying, "Oh, they're sweeping the shop."
Right. It was definitely a matter of just sheer willpower during those times, and yeah, because there was a lot of people that was just going bankrupt, or just saying, I can't do it anymore. And we had a big apartment complex that was going on that was out by Kennecott, and that ended up being also a big, huge money pit, to where they ended up going under the contractor that we were with.
They went under.
Yeah. But we were kind of fortunate because we had some of these government jobs. That was also a HUD home job, so it was a prevailing wage government job. But it was just really, really difficult. So we had to mortgage out everything we had. We had to come up with our own capital. I mean, we was at the brink of just saying we can't do this anymore. And then somehow it would work, last second it would work. Or sometimes we wouldn't make payroll, and then the last second we would calling everybody that owed us money, and we'd find enough payment just to make payroll.
Did you ever just think about laying people off?
We did.
Did you?
Yeah. But, by that time because we were lucky enough to be carried way into it with a good project we were on in Logan. We did the Blue Square Apartments up there. And that project was a good project, so all of our guys was able to stay busy.
Yeah.
Then when that project ended, we were scrambling during all that time. So they had been carried into the recession by a year at least. So now if I let them go, they're really going to have a hard time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we just kept, we did think about it a lot, but we just kept pushing forward and making it work. My philosophy was, if we can keep, like you say with the cells, I used the exact same scenario, right? Instead of just cutting the sheets and burning them for warmth, if we just hang on to them, then when the wind starts up again, we're going to have these big cells that we can just open up, right?
Yeah.
And just pick right back up again. And so when we carried them through, it cost us a lot. But I feel like we were very much blessed, because on the back end,
The
we was
payoff.
able to, because
Do exactly what you
when
wanted.
it turned around, now we have a crew and a reputation to where we have guys that want to come work for us, because they know that we're going to hang on to them and do whatever it takes, to keep them busy and keep them at least in. Now our guys, they took, like we did drastic things back then. Like, we didn't want to cut health insurance, but we took a 5% cut across the board from me all the way down for every single person in the company. We brought them all in. We said, what do you want to do? Do you want to, we can't sustain. We have to do something. So do you want to, as a company, we let them all just kind of have a discussion on it. And we said, do you guys want to take all your benefits away? Your paid vacations, your holidays, your that kind of stuff. Keep your health insurance, of course. Or do you want to keep all your benefits and do a 5% cut? And we'd ran all the numbers, and we said, we got to get this much. If we can get this much, we can survive for another year.
Wow.
So they all said, let's take a 5% cut, right? And
That's pretty amazing that everybody was kind of in.
and they was all in. Yeah,
helping
they
you.
was all, let's do it. Let's do a 5% cut. They didn't like it, but they knew that they couldn't go somewhere else. Maybe they wouldn't get a job if they left.
Yeah.
But then when it turned around, now they was all making, because I made it up to them. I'm like, look, if it turns around, when it turns around, and it will, then we're going to take good care of you, and we're going to make sure that you're well compensated. And so, I'm not going to, go try to brag and say that our guys make more than the top guys, because there's always guys out there that are willing to pay more, but our guys, I try to take good care of them, especially those who stuck through that time,
Nice.
There's another contrast in my mind. I remember I worked for a guy when we were running a mortgage office, and I made a comment to him like, well, let's gather everyone together and let's let's see what they want to do. And his comment was like, I'm not interested in their opinion. I don't want to know what they think.
Yeah.
Right? It was like there's two different philosophies, right? And sometimes I think about that comment from him when I'm running my business, and I'm like, okay, something needs to be done here. Should I pull some people in and poll them and get their thoughts, or should I just be the leader? Should I just be the boss and just decide what's best and throw down a decision? I think probably a little bit of both sometimes has to happen, right?
Yeah.
But do you have a philosophy on that? Do you just generally?
Yeah, I feel like if there's something like that, like a policy change or something major that's going to affect the guys, I think it's a good idea. Again, these guys are all intelligent men who do this for their living. This is still their living, They choose to come to work for Norm's Plumbing to make their living for their family. So I want to give them the respect to say, what do you think about this policy change? How do you think we should fix this problem?
Yeah.
Rather than, and I may steer them, and maybe their ideas get thrown out, but still I'd like to be able to bring them in and let them feel like that they're, because one of my biggest things that I've always tried to push on these guys is take ownership. You're wearing, a Norm's Plumbing shirt, or you're, know that you're a part of this. This is, take ownership of it so that you can know that, you want to be able to say you're working for a successful company. So make the company successful so that, and, if people know me, I'm not and you may get other plumbing owners that come in here that really do look nice, and dress nice and, drive super nice cars and stuff like that. But I'm not here to, I don't exploit my guys for more money. I mean, we got to make a living, and always Norm's Plumbing comes first because that's the business, right?
Yep.
But, they know that if we make a lot more money, they're going to make a lot more money, because I'm not going to just get rich and, squeeze them like a turnip for everything that they're worth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's the way my philosophy is now. I'm, like I said, I'll never be that fancy guy, but I'll make a good living, and I'm fine with it.
And you have a great business. You have I think when I say you have a great business, you have a great reputation, you have great people working for you, right?
Yeah.
It's profitable, it's stable.
Right.
You're able to put things in your day.
Right.
Come
exactly.
to a podcast in
right.
the afternoon. Yeah.
I get I can get some free time. They get free time. See, I want them to be able to go to their kids' soccer games just the same,
Yeah.
That's the whole reason, why we're not bankers or something, where we make lots of money, but we're stuck at one place,
Right.
So we can have that freedom.
Well, thank you. I don't know if you have any more questions for Eric, or you want to go to the fire round, or what's
I think
on your
we're
mind?
good to go to the fire round. Thank you, by the way.
Yeah.
I loved your input, the way you treat your employees, all of that. I think it's
I would
fantastic.
probably say that's the secret sauce to why you've been able to grow and stay successful, is just that fierce loyalty and trust you have between your guys and you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's huge. I'm excited to try to implement more of that in my office, what we do. So
Yeah.
Okay, tell us about the fire round, Liz.
All right, so we got 1 minute to answer all these questions.
Oh, boy. Pressure's on now.
All right, what is your favorite podcast?
This one right here. Probably. No. So, like I said before, I don't know a lot of podcasts. I know Joe Rogan has a cool podcast, but I've never heard it either. So
Not much of a podcast fan. Huh?
No, but I'm going to start learning about podcasts now. I might have to find one.
I love it. What's your favorite business book?
So, I don't read a lot of business books. I do read a lot of articles in different magazines, like the, Builders Association magazines, PHC magazines, things that are modern day inputs from other plumbing companies nationwide that I read some of.
Awesome.
But yeah, not a huge
Not a book reader
as far as that goes.
Well, what you are reading sounds
Sorry.
very applicable. All right, how many hours a day do you work, and how many do you want to work?
So, work 12 to 16 maybe sometimes.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
It's too many.
At least it's
right.
just 5
Especially
days a week,
my
right?
wife. I mean, my wife works still forever, but she works till 2 a.m. sometimes
Oh,
and stuff.
wow.
But yeah, I would like to be. It'd be nice to be no more than 8, maybe. But I do have some good freedoms. I'm not going to complain.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Working probably doesn't feel like work half the time, right?
Right.
So
Exactly.
You're enjoying what you do and the people you do it with.
Exactly.
Yep. Here's one that we forgot to mention earlier is, who do you look up to in the business world and why?
Ooh, I think, as far as business world goes, I like that Elon Musk dude. He's pretty
awesome.
He's impressive, isn't he?
Yeah.
You can
He
invest
seems
in
to have
Twitter
his
now.
hands in the right place at the right time for everything.
Yeah.
Just because he's, he seems like he's a pretty straightforward guy. A lot of the same philosophies, I think, seems like, he treats his guys good. He's very driven, at least from what I've heard.
I don't think he treats his guys nearly as good as you do.
I don't know.
I've heard. I actually listened to his biography.
Is that right?
Pretty brutal guy.
Is he?
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's why he's a big shot.
Yeah.
And I'm
Different
just
level of success.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you learn to be a jerk, you can double.
I don't need to. Yeah, I'd rather have freedom than money sometimes.
Yep. All right. And final one is, what is one piece of advice, the best piece of advice you'd have for our audience?
The one best piece of advice for new business owners.
Okay.
Is that what you're saying?
Sure.
Number one, well, I guess the best piece of advice is don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to go out and chase your dreams, right? It's going to take a lot of work. Build it slowly, one piece at a time, and just be honest and straightforward with yourself and the people around you, and I think you'll be just fine, That's what I would say.
Take it one step at a time.
One step at a time.
It took you a long time to grow this business from 3, where you started,
Yeah.
to 22. It's been 30 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
And there's been lots of ups and downs through that, but
Lots of ups and downs.
it's good advice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if people wanted to get a hold of you, where's the best place to find you?
Just call the phone number. Our number is 801-825-4411, and it's just Norm's Plumbing. Norm's
Perfect.
Plumbing LLC.
Okay.
So.
If you're looking to get into the plumbing business,
Yeah. Or if you're a new business
Call
guy
Eric.
and you're thinking about it and you need questions, let me know.
advice. You've been listening to the Business Greater Than You podcast with Nelson Bars and Liz Sears. Our mission is to help lenders and agents like you.
If you're either already a full-time realtor or looking to become one, and you desire to be highly successful, if you are both a learner and a doer, a hard worker and a total team player, we would love to chat with you about joining our team. Visit us at businessgreaterthanyou.com.
If you're a loan officer or would like to be one, we have a path to help you learn the business and develop the skills needed to lead a high-performance origination team for better income and lifestyle.
And lastly, if you would like to work with either of us, we would love your business.
Do you have a question for a future show? Would you like to be considered as a guest on our show? If so, please call or text our listener line at 801-871-9130.